What are you drinking?
It's nice coffee.
Mm. I saw you try to sneak that in there while the video was playing, and I couldn't have
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Thank you for jumping right to me.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to First Ring Daily Live, where I messaged Paul and asked if he was ready for the podcast. And what did you say, Paul?
Well, I don't remember my exact words, but it was something to the effect of, "Oh, right, podcast. Oh, it's a live podcast."
Yeah, it's something we
Actually,
do.
my cat has entered the room, by the way, but it is the other cat, the one who doesn't interrupt my podcast.
Well, the tables have turned.
Just sitting at the window there.
Just doing cat stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, let me ask you a question. Do I ever have any, I don't know, issues pronouncing names? Ever?
Well, you do, but I don't. I mean, I think anyone would really. I don't think you're particularly bad at it, if that's what you're asking. But
Yes, but I want to qualify or clarify something. I got a tipster that said the code name for Surface Pro 6 is pronounced Carmel.
Carmel, yeah, this came up on Windows Weekly actually.
Mm-hmm.
Carmel, as in Carmel, California.
Yep.
Not caramel, as in the food item of the sugar, which is actually caramel.
Yep.
But and it's in keeping with some place name code names that are kind of related, I believe. Yeah.
So, anyways, somebody sent me that, and that was very nice of them. So here we are.
What do you call it? Caramel? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Caramel.
Caramel, like that delicious treat
that's a common.
that dentists love that stick to your teeth and give you
Pull fillings out and whatnot.
Yeah, no kidding. That and what's the other one? Not Lifesavers, Starburst, right up there with the
yes,
filling
teeth extracting candies.
Okay, I'm waiting for this to end so I can take a nap. But there's a lot to talk about. Actually, there's two really interesting things here. One is I think it was Rich Woods spotted that there's a new Surface laptop, but really a new SKU of the Surface laptop, which is a Core i5, 8 gig of RAM, 128 gig SSD for the same price as the 4 gig. It's now sporting $1,000 price tag.
Yeah, so Microsoft did this previously with Surface Pro, and I believe since he posted that originally, they've also removed the 4 gig option. So this is kind of like the new entry level. And honestly, in the sense that, Surface devices are priced somewhat like MacBooks or, Mac products, $1,000 to get into a Surface, 3,000. Well, I'm not actually the resolution of that one is not 3,000 by 2,000, but it is 3 by 2. It's still very high DPI. Keyboard is fantastic. Trackpad's fantastic. Are they going to refresh it sometime this year? Yeah, almost certainly.
Sure.
When, I don't know. It's a good price.
Yeah.
For that class of machine, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, we both feel like they're going to refresh these things. But that being said, if they just do a spec bump and all that stuff, $1,000 for a last gen high end, or we'll say mid grade piece of hardware is not a bad deal at all. It's really not.
Yeah. Yeah. I know people are going to complain about the dual core thing, which is natural and understandable. But, I've observed this in the past. There's something about Surface Laptop and Surface Book that transcends their last genness. Although Surface Book 2 actually is up to date, right? That one I think is quad core already. Surface Pro falls into this category too. It's that one's still dual core. They're just nice machines. I mean, I get it. But if you're going to live and die by specs, you're going to be an unhappy person. Sometimes you have to factor in just the visceral emotional response you have to something. I know some people don't like it. They don't like the Alcantara, whatever, for whatever reason. I think it's fantastic. I really like it.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point. We haven't heard really any issues of people saying, "Oh my God, my Alcantara is very dirty."
No, when this thing first came out, a couple people decided to smudge stuff into it to see if they could ruin it, and there were a couple of photos of like, look how crappy this looks. But I don't know, maybe that'd be a good thing to look at after a year of use. And actually, there are people who've had these things for a year of use.
Yeah.
So if you bought a Surface laptop last summer and you have one, show us what it looks like. I don't know. There's no way to know, right? But I'm sure they did whatever testing they could do on this kind of thing. Mine is not grungy. I mean, I don't use mine every single day, but it's not grungy. So. I'm pretty grungy, yes. Well, no, I mean, this keyboard that I rest my hands on, I don't know if it's even worth, you probably couldn't even see it, but
I'm just happy you're wearing pants. I was worried.
Yeah, I am wearing pants. But see the smudges on the,
yeah,
with the hands rests? I mean, that's the only thing I can really see right from here. But, I use this thing every single day. So my oily, greasy, hands kind of rest on the thing. That's, that happens. And I don't know what this material is exactly. And I've never tried to clean it, but I wouldn't either. I don't think there's any point. Keyboards get that. You get the oil from your fingers. Some of the keys are shiny.
Yep. Yeah. I'm actually looking at getting a new keyboard, and we'll see. Mostly, this moving upstairs is great, but then trying to hide all the wires, and I have a wired keyboard, and I kind of want a wireless keyboard, but then I really want a mechanical wireless keyboard, which gets you into a difficult position because I think there's only 2 on the market. What are you guys doing out there, keyboard vendors?
This thing that I just showed you is that, what's it called? The Sculpt ergonomic keyboard is wireless. It is a proprietary thing, so there's a little dongle. You have to plug in something in a USB port. It's got that giant softball mouse that I know you love.
I was about to make fun of you for that, by the way.
Actually, it's red. It's blinking red, which means I have to replace the battery.
Or just get rid of it. Get a real mouse.
No, it's perfect. I love it. It's a good keyboard.
Yeah, but it's not mechanical. That's the problem. The problem is it's kind of like getting leather seats in a car. Once you get leather seats in a car, going back to cloth, it's kind of tough. So once you get used to a mechanical keyboard, going back to a non-mechanical keyboard is it's a little tough.
Interesting. You're using a mechanical keyboard now?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever? Can you get it? It's just, or is it's wired? You can't really go get it.
Yeah, it's attached.
It's also upstairs. Yep. Yeah. I'm curious. You should post a picture of it. I'm curious.
Just go look at. I can tell you which one. It's the Razer Black Widow Chroma.
Jeez, Black Widow Chroma?
Yeah, the naming's a little I don't need all.
This is the thing that lights up with all the colors.
Yeah, which is kind of nice, but to be honest, I don't really need it. There's 2 keyboards out there. One's made by Logitech, G, entered some random numbers, and that's it. Then there's another one by Corsair, but the problem is the Corsair one doesn't have the number pad on the right side, whatever you want to call that. And then the problem with the Logitech one is that the wrist rest is permanently attached, and I have a wrist rest that I really like that's padded, and so it's here we are.
Okay. Well, to each their own, I guess.
Yep. Paul, were you arguing with Google lately? Just lately?
It's I don't know. Arguing is not the right term. Asking it to do things and being met with silence, I think, would be the more accurate term.
It's like talking to my daughter.
Yeah, or to the dog. Lay down, lay down, lay down, No, I don't. That's not laying down. So I don't do that to my Google Home, but it is that kind of conversation.
Yep. Wasn't working.
Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know. I was trying to
conversational.
Was failing, just like this podcast.
So the way it's supposed to work is you can walk up to it and say, "Hey, G, what's the weather?" And it will say, the forecast is blah, 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 blah. And then when it completes that, you can say, "And what time is it?" And then it will say, "The time is now." And then you can say, "And would you play the podcast?" Whatever. And it will just start doing that. Like you can do up to 3 things in a row. Or as my Google Home works, up to 1 thing in a row. So maybe it needs some kind of an update or something. I don't know.
Do you use your Google Home for anything other than very basic, mundane tasks?
Personally, I use it mostly to cast audio to it. So if I'm going to work in the kitchen, I will play a podcast or maybe an audiobook or whatever over the Google Home. My wife uses it for music, and she actually uses her voice for that. In my case, I'm not using voice, by the way. I mean, I just use the phone project, whatever the Chrome thing is. Chromecast, whatever it's called. Google Casting, whatever. There's not a lot of Q&A going on, that kind of thing. We just had relatives here last weekend. They had little kids. They were transfixed by these things. There were 4 of them, the kids, and they were in different rooms playing with the different Google Homes, getting them to do stuff. Like over the course of the weekend, I would just be walking around and I could hear music playing or whatever. And I walk into a room and there's like a little Google Home Mini in our living room. It's just sitting there playing music. And it's like, what? Like some kid had just started it and then, took off on it or whatever. But no, to answer your question, not a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we use ours to turn on lights, set timers, and play music. And I'm waiting and I'm trying to figure out when this thing gets smarter, like what am I actually gonna like? I hate talking to people in general. Why do I want to talk to the computer?
I touched on this recently in some article, but when you think about a smart home, I mean, like you have to kind of think what is smart exactly? I in my living room now, this is kind of experimental. We have Philips Hue lights behind the TV that are not experimental. They're just Philips Hue lights. We have a Philips Hue light in one of the lamps. And together those things can do like a room scene kind of a thing, and it's pleasant, it's nice. We use that. But there are two other kind of dumb lamps in the room that we don't use as much. And so I put smart switch or smart sockets, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah.
It sits between the thing that plugs into the wall and the actual socket in the wall. They're different. They're on different systems, right? So I think one is an Insignia and the other one is something else. I don't remember the name of it. So they have different apps, and controlling like four different lights in the living room with 3 different apps is the dumbest thing I've ever described in my life. But you can go into Google Home or Google Assistant. You can go, I'm sure, it works with Alexa. It works with, that's it. It probably just works with those guys. But maybe Siri and possibly also with Cortana. But you can go in and say, look, these things are all in this thing called the living room. And I could say, hey, G, turn off all the lights in the living room. And that actually works. Like it works. And you can turn on all the lights in the living room, that kind of thing. Is that useful? I don't know. You could have smart shades, which would be expensive. You could have smart thermostat, which would be stupid in my house because we have a different box in every room for the heat. You could have smart locks. You could have smart security cameras. You could have all this smart stuff, But when you add it up, like a smart socket, I only have the boxes here, but like a smart socket, like this thing here is like a little, it's like $10 to $20 each for every plug. If you want to do it right, you have to replace the wall switch, in which case you need an electrician or you need to be able to take your own life in your own hands, I guess. At some point, I showed my wife and my daughter the hey, G, turn off the lights thing. And they were like, oh, that's really cool. And they're never going to use that.
No, that was kind of my point.
Yeah, they're never going to use it.
It's like and granted, I'm being pretty ignorant. I'm happy for them to add all this functionality to it. But I mean, we have these things all over our house. And the only thing we do is I walk in put something on the grill and I say, set a timer for 7 minutes, turn on the lights and play music. But that's it. Like
we do a lot of set the timer thing is a very common occurrence in the kitchen. And then, play, 80s music or whatever, that kind of thing, or play some podcast. This is the trick. I mean, it's, and that's why at some point I think the way I wrote it was, I just consider the room I'm in right now. There's a lamp on the floor, there's a lamp on the desk, there's a light switch to a light in the ceiling, and what would it take to make this room smart? And why would I do that?
Yeah, the one thing which. This is bad, Paul. I'm going to commit myself to spend $280 on this podcast at some point.
Okay.
Well, Philips Hue now has outdoor lighting.
Yeah.
Coming in mid-July. Yeah. It's $280 for 3, which is what I would need. And
So we have, So I will say that the most enjoyable thing that we've done, and this is barely smart, but in the smart home realm is we have, like I said, we have those Philips Hue lights in the living room, which we really like. We have these 2 things. I don't remember what they're called, but they're kind of this big and they sit at a 45-degree angle, and you kind of point them toward the corner of the wall, and there's one in each corner. I think it's called a bloom is the name of it. It's a Philips Hue bloom, right? And you can set the room to like tropical sunset or whatever. And so each one of these things is like slightly different. It's kind of orangey on one side and purpley on the other side. During Christmas, I made them red and green. It's pretty. And I could actually picture doing a little bit of that maybe in 1 or 2 other rooms in the house. And you just leave it on 100% of the time. So when all the lights go off at night, those things are still on, and there's a little bit of ambient light from it.
Sure.
It's like enough light. And I could picture doing that outside. Because one of the weirdnesses of my neighborhood is that we have no lights, and so it's the darkest place on earth when you drive through here at night. Other than the fact that everyone's home is lit up with all these floodlights and stuff, which I kind of refuse to do. But we do have some outdoor lights. I could see putting those on a timer. In fact, that's why I have this thing I was experimenting with, which is like a smart switch to see if it made sense. But then I could picture doing Philips Hue again because Halloween you could have orange lights outside. Christmas you could do the red and green, whatever. You could just kind of do like a holiday thing if you wanted to. I could picture doing that. But like you said, it's $100. hundreds of bucks to have orange lights. Like it's kind of goofy, you know. I don't know, but I like the ambient stuff. I just say to people, like, those lights that we just kind of put around, like the TV backlight's always on. Those 2 lights in the sunroom are always on. Mm-hmm. They're pleasant. Like I really like the colored lights.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to think now if I can justify this, that if I bought all these lights, that would stop me from having to hang Christmas lights on my house, because then I could just change the color.
You could. That's the way you sell this. Yep.
Honey, I don't have to get on the roof. Maybe our what is it? Life insurance premium will go down.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Philips Hue should sell that as a benefit.
Yeah, they should. A couple other random things here, since Christmas lights aren't always in fashion. This popped up, I don't know, today or yesterday, but Qualcomm, there's a new chip by Qualcomm that was spotted, codenamed the SDM1000, which will likely be called the 1000 series when it comes out, and it's expected to be a laptop-grade chip with 12 watts of power, which is quite a bit higher than, say, the 835 that's currently running. And the dev device that it is running on has 16 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. It comes courteous of winfuture.de, which that'll be an interesting chip.
Yeah, I mean, we know they're working on multiple generations of PC-centric chips. The first one is the 850 that's coming out this fall. I don't know anything about model names, but it makes sense that, they told me explicitly there are multiple versions they're working on, multiple, I should say, generations. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe a late 2019
or maybe delivery. It comes at CES. Like, I don't know.
Oh, true. Right. No. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Or maybe it comes back at Hawaii where this image was taken.
Mm-hmm.
Twist.
Wouldn't that be terrible?
It'd be so bad if we had to go back there in December. Just gut-wrenchingly bad. Terrible, terrible time. Folks, it is Friday, and one of the things we want to do here on Friday, or that we do frequently, is we'd take a look at the comments. And this first one comes from Space Invader, appropriately named, and this is on the post, Microsoft not bringing VR to the Xbox. He said maybe they've decided VR is the new 3D TV.
I like it.
Yeah, that's actually that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. I think they're making the right decision, and I don't remember where I said this, but I have an article that I started that is basically, they're making the right decision here. They don't do a good job of communicating it. But I think the way to think of this is they're already in third place in this generation. They're already emphasizing services over hardware. Why on earth would you release a niche peripheral for a platform that's coming in last, that no one's going to buy anyway, and is never going to be supported by quality software? Like it's just it's a non-starter. I know Sony's done pretty well with their own little VR thing, but I think this is going to be what I just think of as sub-Connect level of engagement. It just doesn't make sense.
I agree. I got nothing. The other one comes from I don't want to say the name because my office will blow up, but the Amazon device coming to hotel rooms. Just Me says, no, absolutely not. As someone who is on the road a lot, the last thing I want is that device or Siri in my hotel room. I don't want the presence of a microphone in my room. They could potentially pick up every conversation I have, which I get. I mean, that's legit.
Yep. Yeah, so you'll be able to do what I do when I go into a hotel room that has a refrigerator, which is unplug it.
What do you have against fridges?
I have really sensitive hearing. No, I really do.
No. It was more so just the idea of Paul. I just envisioned that you were going to say, you know what? I just absolutely hate fridges.
I don't like things to be cool.
Yeah.
Actually, this is completely unrelated, but is perhaps a fun story. I'm beginning to discover, since I've lived here in Pennsylvania, that I also have kind of sensitive smell. And I've noticed on multiple occasions in the past, like it's the type of thing like you'll be sitting outside and it'll be like, oh, I smell fire. Someone must have a fireplace going. Mm-hmm. And my wife will be like, I don't really smell anything. And then 10 or 15 minutes goes by and she goes, oh, yeah, there it is. So we have a lot of deer in the area. And they're surprisingly afraid of people, given how many of them are. You think like they would be, but they're afraid of people. I don't know why. But so we're walking down this path in the woods. This is probably a month ago now. And all of a sudden I stopped and I was like, do you smell that? And then this deer burst out right in front of us through the woods across the path. And it's what it smelled like was a barn, like a barnyard smell, like an animal, like animals, like a cow would smell, or a pig,
or like a deer would smell.
Well, yes, but now I know that, you know. So now when I walk through the woods, like this has happened multiple times. Like, you know, you if there's like a smoke smell in the, or like there's like a woodsy wet wood smell, it kind of hits you in like a little waft or wave of air or whatever it is. I don't know. I've smelt deer multiple times now, and then saw them. Like, I'll get hit in the face with this, like, you know. And then I stop and look for them, and I'll see them. Like, they'll be across the river, they'll be like up the way a little bit or whatever. But it's kind of a weird thing. Anyway, I turn off the fridge when I go to a hotel room.
This is a great story. And then you found $5 inside that fridge. Yeah. You got anything going on this weekend? Deer sniffing contest or something?
Yeah. I know. It's a weird superpower. No, we're between house guests. So like I said, we had family last weekend. We have friends coming next weekend. You know, because we were talking about it kind of on Twitter, but when we are going to Sweden this summer, we're going to go on a side trip with the kids to Berlin. And we actually did book that last night. So I wrote Marcus Ash to let him know what the dates were. So I think I'm going to see him. I hadn't realized that he had moved to Berlin. That's really cool. So I'm going to go visit the Microsoft office there when I'm there, and I guess the To-Do team is over there.
Yeah, we should try to do a podcast when you're.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. It's the 24th, 26th, somewhere in there of July.
Yeah, I need to send you something to take to Marcus, something small. I haven't figured out what it is yet, but
yeah, okay.
Two things. One, the reason I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out. I was like, why the hell did Marcus move to Berlin? Because he's working on To-Do, but I'm like, oh, that's where the Wunderlist team was.
Right. That's really cool, though. What a great adventure to be on for him.
Oh,
you know?
For sure. And then the reason why I need to figure out what I'm going to send you to take to him is Marcus is a huge Michigan fan. He's a huge Michigan fan, and every time Ohio State and Michigan play, I always message him about how much better Ohio State is. So I'm going to need to find some Ohio State paraphernalia for you to deliver to him in Berlin, and I'm sure he will just be very appreciative.
I should also mention this, since we're talking about side trips for my holiday. I mentioned earlier, for some reason, I don't even remember why, but we were talking about going to Tallinn, which is Estonia, or Helsinki, which is in Finland, as part of a side trip with our friends. And somebody, actually not somebody, I'll tell you his name. Craig Harris wrote me, and I guess because I mentioned it on the podcast, he said, by the way, is this the right guy? Actually, he just recommended, I'm sorry, Craig Harris recommended going to Tallinn, but somebody else told me, where is this? Yeah, Dave McLean, sorry. He wrote me and said, by the way, if you go to either one of those places, there's a high-speed ferry that goes between them, so you can actually go to both. So we looked into that as well. We haven't booked it yet, but we're actually going to do a round-trip thing, and we're actually going to see both. And so just by virtue of mentioning this on the podcast, some people wrote in with some advice, which was really cool. And in this case, completely changed what we were going to do, because we had written our friends and said, look, here are the 4 places we're thinking about, and we can only go to one. And then I was able to come back and say, actually, we can do both of these. We should do that. And that's now what we're going to be doing. So that's cool. So thank you to the folks who wrote in with that stuff. Anyway, I have a way of veering off of the original question. What are you doing this weekend, Brad?
I'm probably just going to unplug some fridges and hotel rooms, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, this cleaning thing that my wife has been on is ongoing, and I suspect I'm going to be dragging more stuff to Goodwill to get rid of it.
This is good. It's just like a decluttering thing.
Oh, it's like beyond that. My kids' room is completely done. We have you can't see it, but it's quite literally, I don't know, like if you went straight that way, there's a room and it just had tons of crap, and we completely got rid of stuff. We kept a bunch of things that we need, but it's now organized. And so my wife got rid of a whole bunch of clothes last night, and she's like doing that, and I'm going to do it this weekend. And so it's just get rid of stuff. I
have a really a good skill in organizing, not a great skill in decluttering, like actually getting rid of stuff. It's kind of an ongoing struggle, but it's awesome that you're doing that. That's It's huge. And there's a huge sense of accomplishment. Like
It
if you had
is.
some room full of crap and now it's like completely organized and 2/3 of it is gone or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, that's the greatest feeling in the world, isn't it?
Yep. Except for unless you're my daughter, who saw us kind of putting some of her stuff away, and she's like, "Daddy, those are my memories you're getting rid of." Like,
Yeah. Yep.
but whatever. All right, you
Kids
got
are the
anything else,
best.
Paul, before we shut her down?
No, I do not.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today, and we will be back. We might be back Monday. Paul and I are traveling early next week. Tuesday, definitely. But Monday will be interesting. We'll try to see what we can do, and have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch you right back here next time.